Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Ramo Rajamanis Sada Vijayate Ramam Ramesham Bhaje Ramena Bihata Nishacharachamu Ramaya Tasmai Namaha. Ramannasti Parayanam Parataram Ramasya Dasosmyaham. Rame Chittalaya Sada Bhavatu Me Bho Rama Mamuddhara. Samasta Jana Kalyani Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Satgurum Brahma Vidvaram. Satgurum Brahma Vidvaram. Om Shri Chinmaya Satgurave Namaha. 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 Before we enter 13th chapter, just few points about the upasana meditation. You would have noticed there is a distinction between the Vedantic meditation that we are familiar with and the upasana meditation which is given in Bhagavad Geeta and in Upanishads. One of the main differences, upasana is Purusha Tantra, means it depends on the person doing it. Meaning the person has freedom in choosing what support he wants to choose. The only criteria is support has to be Shastriya. Alambanam has to be Shastriya. And the challenge we have in a group meditation is you cannot pick one support which resonates with everybody. Everyone will have their own Ishtadevatas. To pick one is difficult. That is the nature of Purusha Tantra. We don't have this problem in Vedantic meditation. Only one Brahman, one goal, one way of meditating. So that is something we have to note. That is why we are having two steps here. First, we are taking Om as the support. And in that we are seeing our Ishtadevata. So if you were to do this meditation on your own, we can skip that first step. So essentially what is happening is you are having two supports. One is of Om, second is of Ishtadevata. And then we are seeing the all-pervading nature and so on. So if we are doing it on our own, we can take direct form of our Ishtadevata as our support and then meditating upon that support as Bhagwan's Vibhuti. And in Upasana, it is helpful if we expand that understanding to creation. Meaning, expand understanding of God to creation. That is when the main import of Upasana is felt. Another thing you would have noticed, in Upasana, the conditionings are kept intact. Conditioning of Jivatva, conditioning of Jagat. Both are kept as it is. But the goal there is to expand the understanding of I to Jagat. The sadhaka says, I love Bhagavan, and Bhagavan is Jagat. Bhagavan is the one who is pervading this entire universe. So, in a way, if I identify with Bhagavan, I am identifying with entire universe. That is another key point. We are looking at consciousness along with conditioning. Before we negate conditioning, first we have to see consciousness wherever we see conditioning. Otherwise, what are we going to negate? Prakritika drishti. Ordinary sight is I see world as world. Devotional vision is I see world plus God. Vedantic vision is there is only God. So in Vedantic meditation, upadhis are negated. We don't say shift attention to drashta and let drishya remain as it is. We say drishya is an appearance in drashta. Whatever is seen is an appearance in the seer. There is only seer. In upasana, let the seen be there. But let it be some divine seen. Means let whole universe become the seen object. Now to focus mind on whole universe is very difficult. Then they say take one support, which represents that whole universe. In that support, meditate upon that consciousness, which is all pervading. Okay. In Mundaka Upanishad, one word comes, tapashraddhe, upavasanti aranye. Shankaracharya says the meaning of the word shraddha is knowing the technique of doing upasana. Just like we should know the technique of Vedantic meditation, he says, person who has thought about the technique of upasana and strives to do it. That is the meaning of the word Shraddha. He doesn't translate Shraddha as faith. And whichever other Upanishads we are studying, we can always get more insights into this technique. Very, very important technique for a sadhaka. First, to develop focus, and which will help in Sarvatmya Bhava. Sarvatmya Bhava means to recognize this consciousness in each and every being. Upasana, one thing we have to note, knowing alone is not sufficient. What it needs is knowing plus doing. If I think God is all pervading, that won't do. If I've understood God is all pervading, that is not enough. What Upasana tells us is we have to sit down in one place and think in that way. Second verse of 13th chapter. Kshetrajñam chapi mam vidhi sarvakshetreshu bharata kshetra kshetrajñayor jnanam yattajnanam matam mama. Arjuna had asked the question about what is kshetra and kshetrajna. Bhagavan Krishna said, whatever is seen, that is called as kshetra. Particularly this body, which represents this entire universe, that is classified as kshetra, the field, and the knower of the field is kshetrajna. And Bhagavan says that kshetrajna I am. We feel the knower is jiva we feel knower is ahankara because it is mistaken identity. When consciousness mistakenly identifies with conditioning, what is born in between is jiva. The equation was jiva equals consciousness plus conditioning. So Bhagavan is telling us, whatever experiences are happening, first come to that I who knows that experience. Any changes in the body, the one who knows it is ahankara. Now from that ahankara, aham. From that aham, let go of conditioning. Conditioning of body, conditioning of mind, conditioning even of avidya. And he says what remains there is pure consciousness. And the beauty is that aham has to become more personal. Whomever I call as this person, that same aham is Ishvara. Isha darshanam swatma rupataha. One doesn't have to struggle for Ishwar darshan. Bhagavan Krishna says, from this I, let go of conditionings. What remains there is Ishvara. Kshetrajnam chapi mam vidhi. Then the opposition came. All this discussion is so that our mind remains in this topic. What is being pointed out as the truth? To keep our mind in that truth, there is Purva Paksha and Uttara Paksha. The Nyaya for this is called as Sthuna Nikhanana Nyaya. If you want to put a pole in the ground, time and again you have to shake the pole. Until you shake it, you feel the pole has gone deep enough, it's steady. But once you shake it, you realize it has to go deeper. So Shankaracharya ji, he brings different objections so that we can get depth in Advaita Vedanta. The first objection was, if you say Ishvara is Kshetrajna, then Ishvara will become Samsari. And Shankaracharya answered that by saying, what is perceived at the time of ignorance is different than what is perceived at the time of knowledge. What is perceived during avidya, it is different than what is perceived at the time of vidya. So samsara is real for an ajnani. And for a jnani, that same samsara, even though it appears, it is not given reality. So he says, with this understanding, you can explain how Kshetrajna can be Ishvara. Don't try to say Ishvara is different, Kshetrajna is different. Reminder, reminder, reminder. Ishvara is referring to Nirguna nature of Ishvara, pure consciousness. And Jiva is referring to Ahankara. Now, Shankaracharya gave what are the different steps by which we fall into samsara. 7 steps he gave. I'll read a little bit. You don't have to worry if you don't have Bhashya. I'm reading only because you should not feel all these points are something I'm sharing on my own. It is just in English, but we are not going word by word of Bhashya. So this point Shankaracharya said, how does a person get bound? Tathacha dehadishu atma buddhihi avidwan ragadveshadi prayuktaha dharma adharma Anushthanakrit jayate mriyate cha iti avagamyate. So if you want to write in English, you can write these 7 steps. They're very, very helpful for understanding where is the error happening and where I need to work. So 7 steps of how a person gets bound. He says the first step is avidya, ignorance. Ignorance about my own nature as blissful self. One word you can write. First step is ignorance. The moment this ignorance is there, it doesn't stop there. We go to the second step where projection happens and we give reality to duality. So, what all things have gotten projected? Body, mind, intellect, and this universe. In 4 things, everything is included. BMI and this universe gets projected because of ignorance, Maya, and I give reality to it. I think it's a separate entity than me. Now, the third step is in this whole universe and BMI, I get identified with BMI. Body, mind, and intellect. Out of that total projection, I get identified with BMI. Third step. Once I get identified with BMI, I cannot but remain without entertaining desires. So that is the fourth step where desires bring ragadvesha, likes and dislikes. Now that ragadvesha will push me to the fifth step where I will do things with Dharma Adharma. I will try to fulfill that desires either by righteous means, but if that desire is too strong and righteous means don't allow that person to fulfill it, he will not hesitate to take support of unrighteousness also. Dharma Adharma. So based on these two comes the sixth step, which is Punya Papa. Dharma brings Punya, Adharma brings Papa. Based on these two comes the seventh step, Sukha Dukha. Now this steps that he points out is very beautiful. We should try to analyze this, taking examples of life experiences. Let's say if some person is getting joy, Sukha only we will take, okay? Let us not take Dukha example. Somebody is praising him, he's sitting somewhere. Sometimes public functions, some club, majority of the time is gone in giving bouquet and praising that person. 10 people will sit on the stage, each person is being separately acknowledged and is getting joy. So many nice things they are telling. Now go by these steps. What is the first step? Avidya, of the fact that I am Ananda Swarupa. Now once that happens, when it happened, we don't know. It is happening right now, that much we can say. Once that happens, second step is reality to duality. There is body, there is mind, there is intellect, and there is universe. That innocent avidya can have such drastic consequences. This is the difference between worldly avidya and mula vidya. If I don't know German, that is also ignorance. But it doesn't create anything else for me. If I don't know I am Brahman, it creates body, mind, intellect, and the world outside. So second step is there. In that I have identified with BMI. So if I'm getting joy from that praise, that means body identification is there, mind identification is there. I feel I am this person. Now, once that is there, our essential nature is joy. So we cannot but seek joy. So how are we seeking it right now? Through praise. So raga dvesha will come, desire will come. So some desire which is making me go to those places where I get this external joy. It might be possible that this person has lived a very ethical life, dharmic life. That is why he is getting that praise. Adharma is also possible, but that praise will be short-lived. Let's take the dharmic example. And that dharma has brought him punya. And that result of punya only he is experiencing as that praise. And that praise is translating as sukham, joy in his life. That is this whole ladder. Now somebody might ask, why is this a bondage? Why do you call this a samsara? I am getting joy. I have lived a dharmic life, done punya karma. Where is samsara here? Samsara is because that joy which is coming is not coming from praise. That joy is my own essential nature getting reflected in a mind which is quiet because it is getting what it wants. So kama, desire agitates the mind. Fulfillment of kama quietens the mind. That is all kama does. It will agitate, it will quieten. The joy which is experienced is our own Ananda Swarupa. Bliss of the self gets reflected in joy coming from Vishaya. So what is happening here? My own joy, I have put a condition to experience. One Mahatma he says, it is like living in your own fully paid off house by paying rent. You know, that Ananda is our own Swarupa and we are paying the rent of Vishaya. Or we are paying the rent of some person praising, some experience outside. He says that is bondage unless we fix the ignorance part. We will get caught up in this samsara. Now, how is it samsara? Although we took example of joy, it is not going to be joy all the time. It will be a mixed bag. If praise comes, tomorrow that same person might criticize. So if I had sukham from here, dukham is waiting. In hotels, they have revolving doors, right? So from one side, sukham comes. From another side, dukham has entered. Is taking the turn and coming there. That is samsara. Now, what happens to a jnani? Before we go to jnani, just notice one more point. All 7 points we are able to appreciate, right? How it falls. Look at to what step number does devotion and karma yoga do its work. You will notice devotion and karma yoga, they will solve our problem until step 4. Raga dvesha, removing that is the work of bhakti and karma yoga. It will not go above. Body mind identification, they say that is not our area. Reality to duality, this is not our topic. Keep duality, and remove ragadvesha. And to remove ignorance is the unique job of Advaita Vedanta. So if we appreciate the 7 steps, we will also appreciate where knowledge is working and which step onwards Karma Yoga works. And look at the beauty of Karma Yoga. It will sift through all other problems. Sukha, Dukha, Punya, Papa, Dharma Adharma. Person will do more and more Dharma, more and more Punya, more and more Sukham. The result of that, Ragadvesha is weakened. Then the only job is to know that I am not Karta. I am not this doer of good actions. That's why Nachiketa says, Anyatra Dharmat. Anyatra Adharmat. Anyatra Adharmat we can understand. Tell me that truth which is beyond Adharma. But how come it is beyond Dharma also? What he's asking there is, tell me about that truth which is not this ego. Which is beyond this ego, because the one who is doing Dharma is Ahankara. So in that way, he's transcending this pair. Now what happens to a jnani? What is his journey like? See, Shankaracharya is explaining the same point. That at the time of ignorance, things are perceived differently. At the time of knowledge, things are perceived differently. How are things at the time of ignorance? 7 steps he pointed out. How are things perceived at the time of knowledge? He is pointing out now for a jnani. Dehadi vyatirikta atmadarshinaha ragadveshadi prahana pakshe prahanapeksha dharma adharma pravritti upashamat muchyante iti. Same 7 steps. He says it is undoing these knots. What is step number 1 for a jnani? Knowledge of one's own true nature is present. So whenever you talk about Jivan Mukta, enlightened person, the main qualification there is presence of knowledge. Not even presence of consciousness. Is consciousness present in Ajnani or not? Very much present. Is consciousness present in Jnani? Yes, it is present in Jnani. Is that consciousness in Jnani better consciousness than the Ajnani? Same consciousness. You take Guru Shishya Sambandha. It is the same consciousness in Shishya and in Guru. So in Ajnani also there is Chaitanya. Jnani also there is Chaitanya. What is the difference? In Ajnani there is ignorance and in Jnani there is knowledge. So the Mahima, greatness is of Brahma Jnanam, not of Brahman. So in Jnani the first step is there is knowledge of one's own true nature. Then second one is reality given to duality is not there. Means reality given to duality is remote. Again, duality is not remote. Reality is remote. Then step number 3, Ajnani had identification with BMI. And in case of Jnani, there is no identification with BMI. Is he free from BMI? He says not yet. BMI is appearing, but he is not identifying it as his own. Total absence of BMI will happen when it drops, which is called as Videha Mukti. Not identifying with BMI when it appears, Jivan Mukti. Then step number 4, because for him there is no creation, or this creation appears in him. He is not this ego, but that Ananda Swarupa Atma. There is no reason to entertain desires. So step number 4 is taken care of. There is no ragadvesha. Then step number 5, there is no reason to do dharma and adharma, because it is not, they are done by ahankara and he is not identifying with ahankara. And most importantly, dharma adharma person is prompted into mainly from the standpoint of getting some result. Because I have some desire, to attain that, there is dharma and adharma. The example given in Mundaka is Swarga. If somebody wants to go to Swarga, then he has list of dharmic actions he has to do. Because desire is not there, means to fulfill that desire also is not needed. And because he is free from dharma adharma, he is free from punya papa. And because he is free from punya papa, even when sukha dukha come, he doesn't own it up as his own. Does sukha dukha stop appearing for a jnani? It need not. The prarabdha will bring him different experiences, but he is not caught into samsara, nor does it depend upon that for his ananda. For Nachiketa, Yamacharya says, Vivrutam Sadma Nachiketasam Manye. Sadma means palace. He says, oh Nachiketa, for a student like you, the doors of the palace of bliss are open. You can come and live there whenever you want. That is this freedom, where he is not depending upon any person or object for ananda. Okay, this was just a applied way of seeing what are these 7 steps. How it is for a ajnani and how it is for a jnani. Now Shankaracharya says, this samsaritva of Ishvara is only because of avidya. Tatra eva sati kshetrajnasya ishvarasya. He uses kshetrajna and ishvara in the same case. It is just like saying the samsaritva of ahankara. Who is Ishvara? Eva satah avidyakrita upadi bhedatah samsaritvam iti bhavati. The samsara that comes to Ishvara, pure consciousness, is only because of avidya. There is superimposition happening between the attributes. Samsara belongs to the scene, and that attribute of the scene is appearing on the seer. Because it is appearing, it is not getting transferred. All the agitations of the mind, different emotions of the mind, limitations of the body, none of that is getting transferred to me. Although I say, I am having a headache, I am having toothache, whatever that ache is, as pure consciousness, none of that is getting transferred to me. Then he gave the example of post and ghost. He said, just like ghost appears on the post, really speaking, attributes of the ghost don't get transferred to the post, and attributes of the post don't get transferred to the ghost. Post doesn't start breathing and talking and walking, and the ghost doesn't become wooden in nature. What is he pointing out? What is the post here? Post here is Ishvara. And what is ghost representing? Samsara. His main point is, even though samsara is appearing in Ishvara, no attributes of samsara get transferred to Ishvara. Just like ghost is appearing on the post, no attributes of the ghost get transferred to the post. So Sukha Dukha, joy and sorrow, really speaking, don't get transferred onto me. It's a nice sadhana, huh? To keep thinking in this way. Then he says, the Purva Paksha comes and says, your example is not correct. Na atulyatvat. Why is it not correct? He says, you gave post and ghost example. Both post and ghost are known entities. Both of them are Jnaya. And between Samsara of Deha and Atma, Deha is Jnaya, it is known, and Atma is Jnata. So your superimposition in your main point is happening between known and knower. In your example, your superimposition is happening between two known entities, known and known. See, such a subtle point he got, huh? Purva Paksha. So his point of view is, if you cut the example, your main point gets cut. What was his main point? Shankaracharya was trying to make Kshetrajnam chapi mam vidhi. That Kshetrajna is Ishvara. So he says, my objection to that was, Ishvara will become samsari. And you said, no, samsaritva is because of avidya. No attributes get transferred to Atma, Ishvara. And you gave example of post and ghost. So if I cut your example, the main point gets cut. According to Purva Paksha, he says, keep Ishvara separate, keep this samsari kshetrajna separate. Don't say kshetrajna is Ishvara. Then Shankaracharya says, if you say that attributes really get superimposed onto Atma, Atma becomes Sukhi Dukhi, then your problem will be a Chaitanyadi prasangat. A Chaitanya means Atma will become unconscious. Atma will perish one day. What he's trying to say there is, if you are transferring attributes from Anatma to Atma, from the seen to the seer, transfer all attributes. So you transferred Sukha Dukha. You said Atma becomes Sukhi Dukhi. Transfer attributes of body also. What are the attributes of body? Janma Mrityu, birth and death. So what will your Atma become? That which is born and that which will die. He says, you also accept that Atma is something which is eternal, it cannot perish. So have you thought about what are the consequences if you transfer attributes of not self onto the self, Anatma onto Atma? You will end up with an Atma which is perishable entity. Therefore, don't transfer. If you transfer, transfer all. Otherwise, don't transfer any. Now here, again, we have to keep in mind, lot of questions might come. What is Shankaracharya trying to say? Samsara doesn't affect Ishvara. And the moment we think about it, we start feeling, if there is a cut somewhere, that means I should not feel pain also. How come I'm feeling that pain and you're saying, I don't have samsara? If samsara is not there in Ishvara, there should be no perception of samsara, no feeling of samsara. We see that is the whole point. Because something is seen somewhere doesn't mean it belongs to it. The example given is hibiscus flower and the redness of that flower appearing in the crystal. That color is seen in the crystal doesn't mean color belongs to the crystal. Like that, pain is seen in consciousness. But because it is seen there, it doesn't mean it's a quality of consciousness. It is not dharma of Chaitanya. If it was, then we could never let go of it. Dharma of something is something that need not be taken up, nor can you let go. This becomes more relevant when we apply it to other emotions at mind level. It might be anger, it might be any other emotion, agitation, disturbance. If you say, who is disturbed? I will always say, I am disturbed. But Vedantic sadhana is, I am a witness of that disturbance. And at that moment, if I need to calm it down through any means, I can take support of that. But very quickly, I have to bring this understanding that as pure self, I have no disturbance. As pure consciousness, anger doesn't belong to me. If it belonged to me, I could never let go of it. If it was my nature, I could never be separate from it. Okay. All this we had seen in the last session. We are just recapping it in a different way, but these are very, very important points. This is what separates Advaita Vedanta from several other schools of thoughts. Now he says, even in the world we know that a superimposed entity doesn't hurt nor help the substratum. Nahi क्वचिदपि लोके अविद्या अध्यस्तेन धर्मेण कस्यचित् उपकारः अपकारः वा दृष्टः. In this world, if there is a superimposed entity, it cannot cause any harm to the substratum. So whenever I see my racing thoughts, I see different types of thoughts. If I'm already working on it in my sadhana, he says, don't get too bothered by it. Because thoughts don't belong to consciousness. They are an appearance in consciousness. They cannot harm the substratum. The moment we give too much reality to that superimposed, to that extent we'll be bound. So he gives different examples. Even if children superimpose dirt in the sky in the form of clouds, sky doesn't get affected because it is just a superimposition. The ghost which is appearing in the post will not affect the post. The illusory snake which is there will not affect the rope. What is his main point? Superimposed doesn't affect substratum. We are in Advaita Vedanta only when we take examples of appearance. One reality, because of ignorance, appears as something else. So between snake and rope, there are not two entities. There is one appearing as two. So here also, consciousness appears as thoughts, and that thought comes to bind us. So this sadhana is to remove the reality given to thoughts, reality given to another. Now Shankaracharya is a little bit upset at this Purva Pakshi. He says, you don't know how to understand examples. Avidya adhyasa matram hi drishtanta darshantikayoho sadharmyam vivakshitam. Whenever an example is given, you should only take the similarity part. I gave example of post and ghost. And what was your objection? He says post and ghost both are Jnaya. Here it is happening between Jnata and Jnaya. Knower and known. Where did you go with my example, he says? You should focus on the similarity. What is the similarity of post and ghost example and consciousness and body example? That because of ignorance, because we don't know the post, there is superimposition happening. Something else got projected, ghost got projected, and it didn't stop there. It started appearing in each other. You see both things as one now. That is what we have to extrapolate. Between consciousness and body, both have gotten intertwined. Because of ignorance, because we don't know the self, body appears to be real and self appears to be affected by nature of this body. So both ways there is superimposition happening. Even in this colloquial terms, when we give examples, we don't literally mean it. This person has heart of gold. Now don't see a bar in his heart. I mean, he's a generous person. For our group, he is a pillar of strength. A pillar of strength means he doesn't get shaken by difficult situations. So sadharmya is there. You have to extrapolate that part. Don't take it literally. Now comes a very important topic. All of you are enjoying this? Okay. You have to say yes, no. Shankaracharya takes a very subtle point. He says, what is the, now this topic is over. Huh? The first topic of how samsara appears in Ishvara. And it is only because of avidya, that topic is done. Now he starts with another topic. He says, what is the effect of ignorance and what is the locus of ignorance? Because avidya, ignorance was the main point, which he said is our bondage. So it becomes important to appreciate what are the effects of ignorance and what is the locus of ignorance. Now the Purva Pakshi, he comes and says, can you repeat that previous statement, what you said? Shankaracharya says, yes. Samsara in Ishvara is because of avidya. That is where he concluded. Purva Pakshi says, no. Presence of avidya itself is samsara. You see his subtle point? He says not samsara is because of avidya. He says your Brahman, you say, has always avidya or ignorance or maya along with it. That presence of maya itself is samsara. Means what he's saying there is, Ishvara becomes samsari due to its association with ignorance. He's not going to the effects now. He's saying the very presence of avidya makes Ishvara samsari. Not even Ishvara appears as samsari. He says Ishvara is samsari because there is avidya present. Avidyavatvat kshetrajnasya samsaritvam iti chet. Avidyavatvat means because it is endowed with ignorance. Because it has ignorance associated with it. My proposal is Ishvara is samsari. Shankaracharya's answers are very straightforward. First he says one word, na. No. Why? Avidyayaha tamasatvat. He says this avidya is a tamasa pratyaya. In simple words, it is thought of ignorance. Pratyaya means a thought. Tamasa means that which has predominance of tamoguna. So the veiling power of avidya has predominance of tamoguna. Now he will come back to the point. He will answer, but just appreciate his flow of thoughts. What did the Purva Pakshi say? Ishvara is samsari because it is endowed with avidya. Avidyavatvat kshetrajnasya samsaritvam. And Shankaracharya had said kshetrajna is, or Bhagavan Krishna said kshetrajna is Ishvara. This is Ishvara becomes samsari because it is endowed with avidya. And Shankaracharya says no, because you have to appreciate what is the nature of avidya. Once you appreciate it, the result of that understanding will be, even though avidya is present, it belongs to kshetra, not to kshetrajna. How is he going to take us there? He'll take step by step. That avidya is kshetra dharma, not kshetrajna. So he says this avidya has three effects. Tamasa pratyaya of avidya has three effects. It's very simple. Huh? The Sanskrit word should help us get clarity, not get overwhelmed. Let's look at the English first. Whenever avidya is present, the first effect of avidya is, I don't know. I don't know. That is the first result. Second result of avidya is, I see something else. Second result is, I see something else. Third expression, third effect of avidya is, I see many other things. Now take example of rope and snake. What is the first expression of avidya? I don't know the rope. That is the first effect. Second effect is, not only I don't know the rope, I see a snake there. I see something else. And according to our samskara, we can see many other things. So somebody can see a garland. Somebody can see it as crack in the earth. Three effects. Now you can write down the Sanskrit word. First one is agrahana. Agrahana means non-apprehension or veiling power. That is the first effect of avidya. Second effect is viparita grahana. Projecting power. Projecting power. Viparita grahana is the second effect. And third one is samshaya upasthapika. Samshaya upasthapika. More than one possibility is seen. Agrahana, viparita grahana, or samshaya upasthapika. Now, when knowledge of the substratum takes place, all of these three effects disappear. The moment I see the rope, my ignorance of the rope goes away. I stop seeing the snake. Neither do I see anything else. So he says, avidya is something which comes and goes. So it is, you can't say it comes because it is anadi. But in this case, he says, once knowledge takes place, all the three effects of avidya, they are removed. And the most important point here is, I need to gain knowledge of substratum. Merely thinking or appreciating that I am seeing something because of avidya, that alone is not sufficient. If I understand I am seeing that illusory snake because of ignorance, that much is not sufficient. It will not remove my fear completely. What do I need? Knowledge of the rope. So here also, if we just appreciate that because of avidya we are seeing this universe. That alone is not sufficient. What we need is knowledge of Brahman, knowledge of substratum. Now he says, when knowledge comes, effects of ignorance disappear. Then he gives a very unique example of ignorance. He says, ignorance is like cataract. Avidya is like cataract. Why is he giving that example? Because you will see all three effects. If cataract is there, we cannot see. We see something else, or we could see many things. Agrahana, Viparita Grahana, Samshaya Upasthapika. All these three, they will happen if that cataract is there. Which is just like that cataract, avidya is present. Now the Puropaksha comes, he says, oh, if avidya is like cataract, then can we say avidya belongs to Ishvara? Because whom does that cataract belong to? If you remove the cataract, the sight is back to normal. Shankaracharya says, look closely. I gave that example for a purpose. That cataract belongs to the eye, not to the one who has the eye. Cataract belongs to the eye, not to the one who has the eye. In other words, it belongs to instrument. Cataract belongs to the instrument, not to the wielder of the instrument. It belongs to karana, not to karta. So if you operated the eye, vision of the person became good. Like that he says, avidya belongs to kshetra, not to kshetrajna. Avidya is kshetra dharma, not the dharma of kshetrajna. Just like the cataract was dharma of karana, not of karta. Like that, ignorance belongs to kshetra, not to kshetrajna Ishvara. Another reason he gives, all the effects of avidya, the three effects, I don't know, I see something else, and I see many things. He says all of them are known. The effects of avidya are known. If at all something is known, it has to be different from the knower. So if avidya and its effects are known, so it has to be kshetra dharma, not kshetrajna. So even though avidya is present with kshetrajna, it belongs to kshetra. There is no trace of avidya in kshetrajna. What was his proposal? That kshetrajna becomes samsari because of the presence of avidya. And Shankaracharya wants to prove that avidya belongs to kshetra, doesn't belong to kshetrajna. Okay, so this one he says, samvedyatvacha tesham pradeepa prakashavat na jnatru dharmatvam. Because the effects of avidya are known, whatever is known belongs to the field. This is Drigdrisha Viveka in Bhashya form. That if at all something is known, that seen cannot be the seer. Seer is always different from the seen. So kshetrajna is different from avidya. And he says, if that was the essential nature, avidya was the essential nature of Atma, you could not give it up. There would be nothing called as moksha. Avidya would always remain. And he says, even in your philosophy, even in your darshana, at the time of liberation, Atma is without avidya. That is his point. Sarva karana viyoge cha kaivalye sarvavadibhi avidyadi doshavatva anabhyupagamat. No school of thought accepts that you are ignorant at the time of liberation. At the time of liberation, there is no ignorance. So if at all ignorance is something which has to end, then it cannot be dharma of kshetrajna. Dharma is something which you cannot let go of. So fire's dharma is to be hot. So we can never have a cold fire. We can never have a dark fire because it is the dharma of it. You cannot let go of it. So like that, if avidya were to be dharma of kshetrajna, we could never let go of that dharma. Okay, so in summary, he has mentioned that avidya is tamasa pratyaya. It's a special kind of thought with predominance of tamas. It has three effects: agrahana, viparita grahana, and samshaya upasthapika. And he gave the example of cataract. Cataract belongs to the eye, not to the one who has the eye. Like that, avidya belongs to kshetra, not to kshetrajna. And because effects of avidya are seen, whatever is seen doesn't belong to the seer. So I know what I don't know. Because I'm knowing it, that avidya is not mine. And he said, in Kaivalya Avastha, all darshanas accept there is no avidya. Therefore, it cannot belong to consciousness, it belongs to matter. Therefore, Ishvara is not affected by avidya. That is his main point. These topics, they are the grammar of Advaita Vedanta. Between poetry and grammar, what is most difficult and looks dry is sometimes the grammar part. But unless we appreciate it, the nuances of it don't get fully opened. I know we didn't get a chance to discuss the values part today, but it was a flow of topics. Doesn't make sense to break it in between. So next session, we will have Saturday morning class next weekend also. Some setup might be there for the Diwali Puja, but we'll try to manage whatever setup is there without disturbing it. And those who are joining us online can continue to join online. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om